welcome to this month's edition of the Global Outlook. I'm Alex Holmes, and I head up our brilliant team of analysts looking at the Asia-Pacific region. Joining me today is Wen Chong, whose coverage spans a wide region with a focus stretching from Southeast Asia down to New Zealand and the Pacific Island nations. So, of course, we're fresh out of the US elections, and the result will do nothing to dispel the narrative that we're entering a multipolar world. The global order is reshaping itself, and the world is not just bifurcating into US and China-centric poles, but middle powers and smaller states are not without agency and are increasingly treading their own paths. So, Wen Chong, why don't we start with the US election? Donald Trump's isolationist and transactional policies could see the US pull back from the world further. So, in this new era of multipolarity, how are you seeing Asian countries react?
Thanks, Alex. Now, Asian countries have long advocated for a more multipolar world. Trump has threatened to raise tariffs of up to 60% on China-made imports and a blanket tariff of 10 to 20% on every other country in the world. Many Asian countries are highly trade dependent. Southeast Asia, for example, has an average trade to GDP ratio of 90%. That is double the global average. Trump's isolationist stance is likely to validate the decisions by Asian countries, and this will further encourage them to seek more diversified international groupings, such as BRICS and RCEP. This is to hedge against policy uncertainty in the US. It's important to note that both of these groupings include include China, but not the US.
Thanks, Wen Chong. So you mentioned the BRICS partnership. And I know that a few ASEAN countries have applied to join recently. What do you see as the appeal to Asian countries of the partnership, and how long do you see BRICS going as an institution?
The importance of BRICS will grow over the coming years, but the bloc is unlikely to become an anti-Western alliance. While it's true that some members and partners hold strong anti-Western sentiment, for example, Russia and China, many are not part of an anti-Western platform. These countries see BRICS mainly as a tool to diversify their export market. Recently, several countries have been admitted as partner countries. This includes many Southeast Asian countries, namely Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. For partner countries, it is a relatively low-cost way to signal interest in expanding their international partnerships beyond Western ties. We don't think that this will jeopardize their relations with Western countries as well. There are also common goals of BRICS, such as dedollarization. This is viewed as a largely economic step and not related to any political stance.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily the anti-Western alliance that some people have billed it as. You mentioned at the end there, de-dollarization. How feasible do you think that will be?
There are some initiatives by BRICS countries to catalyze this. For example, BRICS Pay is a cross-border payment system in the local currency. The central banks of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, and Singapore have signed an MOU to boost regional connectivity, and this uses local currency settlements. So there will be no need to convert their local currency to US dollars. However, we believe the US dollar will remain the dominant global tender in the foreseeable future. It still has the strongest institutions and a firm grip on global finance. Among non-Western currencies, the Chinese yuan is still the most prominent due to China's presence in global trade, investment, and lending. However, its role is constrained by capital account restrictions, limited investment options, and geopolitical concerns. So we don't expect it to be used outside of trade with China. So going back to your question, de-dollarization is a common goal of many Southeast Asian countries. We think it's something that many Southeast Asian countries are working towards too, but we do not think that it will any currency will completely replace the US dollar in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and within BRICS itself, a lot of the members are not necessarily on the same page. I mean, for instance, you've got the two biggest members, China and India. They're both members of BRICS, but they're kind of regional rivals. So how do you think this dynamic between the two will evolve in the near future?
That's an interesting observation, Alex. Now, most countries in BRICS are in cordial relations with each other. The largest political risk, as you have pointed out, is China-India relations. Both countries have disputed territorial boundaries in the Himalayas. And India is also a key member in the Quad Alliance, a pact that's largely seen as a bulwark against Chinese expansionism. The withdrawal of either of these countries will significantly impact the economic influence of the bloc. That said, the US's isolationist stance is likely to encourage further thawing of relations between both of these countries. In late October, and this is before Donald Trump's election, the two countries reached an agreement over the resolution of tensions along their disputed border. And they also sought to further disengage their troops in disputed regions. Beyond security, engagement could imply easier visa issuance norms, the lifting of certain import restrictions, and some incremental encouragement of Chinese direct investments by India in non-strategic sectors. However, we are cautious that intermittent flashpoints can arise between China and India in the form of, for example, China's sway in India's neighboring countries, infrastructure building at the border, and of course, India's scrutiny of Chinese technology and investments in certain sectors.
Okay, thanks, Wen Chong. We'll wrap it up there. But it was great to chat to you. And this was the last edition of the Global Outlook this year. We'll see you in 2025.